It's going to break down my swimming technique. We're going to start with the upper body here. My hand enters the water far too early, and then rather than glide, I'm not staying long enough through the water. So as soon as my catch hand comes in, the right hand there, and comes through to drag, I'm dragging and collapsing through the stroke. Not only is my right arm coming through too early, but my left hip is also angled, which is increasing the surface area, creating a lot of drag, a lot of unnecessary drag. So here's a swimmer with a really good stroke technique. You can see the arms gliding. He's really long through his body, and his arm is gliding as the right arm comes through, the left arm glides through the water. Also important to note that as he's bringing his right arm through here, or his catch arm, that flow of water or that pressure of water underneath his legs is going to force his legs upwards, more towards the surface, and that's going to also decrease the amount of drag he's creating. So he's getting a lot of efficiency for each arm stroke. Rather than how I'm swimming, I'm collapsing through the stroke and bending at the hips. So as I'm bringing that arm through, it's actually hitting my leg, which is really going to increase the drag on my leg, but also stop my lower legs from staying elevated, which is going to lengthen my body, decrease the surface area of the water hitting it. You can see the difference here with this professional swimmer. They've got their left arm coming through, but it's still way in front of their head, and the right arm's making entry into the water at the same time. Whereas in my stroke, I'm really rushing my stroke. As soon as my arm hits the water, I'm dragging through. I've got to let that front arm glide a lot more. As you can see here, my catch arm, my right arm, is already starting to drag through, and my left arm's just come out of the water. So that needs to stay there a lot longer, that right arm. On the positive side here, though, you can see my eye level is looking straight towards the bottom of the pool, keeping my neck fairly neutral in a straight position. At least that's doing something to keep my hips and legs in line. So there's a positive to be drawn there. Also, my breathing technique for an amateur is not too bad. I've probably lifting my head a bit too much rather than just rotating. I find that I'm lifting my head up there, and as I lift my head up, you'll notice my feet start to drag further or drop lower. There's a couple of positives and a couple of negatives here. The breathing position, or my mouth position, is pretty good here. My elbow's in a pretty good position in relation to my wrists and fingers. So they're the two positives. The negatives are my catch arm that's starting to come through now is way too early. It really still needs to be out in front of my head, and it's not. And the other thing to note is my hip position. There's a lot of flexion still through the hip, so that's creating drag. Not just the drag through my hip, but potentially the back of my arm that's already come through. I also notice there's a lot of separation between my feet. I notice really good swimmers, they have quite a narrow position between their feet, which I clearly don't have. My right knee is really flexed, fair way apart, and it should almost be more of a flick action than it is a flex at the hip and a kick action. As you can see here, the hip isn't the only part that flexes, the knee does as well. And while that there is always going to be a little bit of flexion with swimming through the action itself, it's more of a flick action rather than a purposeful hip and knee flexion action or a kick. I've gone and taken some footage of a friend of mine who's been swimming for a long time, and you notice how his catch hand, the hand that's entering the water, stays in there for a lot longer. He glides, he leaves that extended for a lot longer than what I do, and as a result, he glides through the water, keeping his body nice and straight, reduces the surface area to the point that his stroke rate is 10 strokes less than mine. It takes him 20 strokes to swim 25 metres. It takes me 30. So it's not just my technique in reducing drag, it also makes me have to breathe a lot more and work a lot harder for the same result. So while we've proven here that we can swim 25 metres, there is quite a bit to work on. The first one is early hand entry. So getting that arm a lot straighter, a lot further out from the body. And then once it's in the water or entered into the water, we glide a lot for a lot longer. Third, excessive hip flexion. Way too much hip flexion there, causing too much drag, and collapsing through the core, so not drawing my core in to stay long enough through the water. The other is rushing my breathing. It's obviously getting used to swimming, being a non-swimmer. Really need to relax more in the water. Once you get that breathing under control, that will improve all of it. And then feet separation. So there's way too much feet separation there as well. So working on that also. So we'll create some drills and some strength work to bring a bit more efficiency into the swimming technique.